Vaya con Dios, amigo.
What's that mean?
Go with God.
You're listening to the Rock God Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Rock God Podcast, the only podcast that talks to rock and heavy metal musicians and artists about their thoughts or opinions about God. I'm your host, David Locklear, the owner and head writer at heavy-vinyl.com. Today we are talking to Ole, the vocalist for the band Mantric. Mantric is a rock band out of Oslo, Norway. Their core members, Tor, who does rhythm guitar, vocals, and percussion, Ole, who also does vocals and lead guitar, John on bass, they started creating music together in the 90s. They began their career in the band Lingsel at the height of the black metal era, then played in the millennium death metal band Extol, until finally regrouping as Mantric in 2007, a rock-oriented group with a progressive metal edge. Mantric released their debut album Descent in 2010, followed by Sin in 2015. The band's new album, False Negative, expands the metal genre while maintaining its grit, incorporating synths and cleaner vocals with aggressive instrumentation. So today, one of the things that we talked to Ole about was how the first time I interviewed him, we had some serious technical difficulties in which you couldn't hear the questions I was asking, and he sounded like he was just speaking into the wind. So thankfully, he was gracious enough to reset the appointment, talk to us again, and we managed to talk about many of the same things that we covered the first time, only a little bit more in depth the second time. So here he is, Ole from Mantric.
Give me a smile that doesn't sting in my eyes.
frustrated to say the least.
Yeah.
So there we go. It appears to be picking you up. It when you speak, it's giving me the prompt, and mine seems to be doing the same thing. So all right, yeah,
cool.
We'll pray that this is going right. You know, like last time, my spidey senses were going off. Like something felt off, but I didn't really. I was like, it's probably nothing. It's fine. And yep, like, as soon as I got off the phone with you and I'm listening back, I hear all of your answers, and it sounds like you're just a crazy person talking into the wind.
Yeah, might be weird as a podcast. Yeah, talking to the voice.
All right,
voice
yeah.
Head. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you talking to me again. So
Yes,
now we're good to go. So I'm just a little paranoid after last time. I'm like, it is still working, right? Yeah, it seems to be fine. Okay, well, how you doing, man?
I'm fine. Thanks.
Good. Well, talk to me about the new album. You talked to me a little bit about it last time. Actually, I don't think we really talked too much about the album. We talked a little bit about it, but I think we more chatted, straight religion talk, seemed like, on the last one.
Yeah. So the album, right? False Negative?
Yes, sir.
Um,
Where does that title come from?
It's some medical term. Tor Magne, he's actually a nurse, so he picked it up sometime at his work, I guess. And we just, I don't know what it was about it. It's something about just the vibe to it, and like the concept of thinking you are well, thinking you are doing fine. And then later you find out it's not like that. You're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's something about that appealed to us in some kind of weird way. We don't always have these clear answers why we choose the titles and or artwork or whatever. Sometimes it's just about a vibe and an atmosphere to it, some associations. It's a bit abstract, I guess.
Okay, so it's not like you went into this going, okay, we have this overarching theme, and now we have to sum it up with one specific title for this album kind of thing. You're like, oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it's more like that, yeah. We're not structured enough to do that kind of things. Like a concept album, so it will never happen.
Yeah, when I was younger, I was enamored with Pink Floyd's The Wall. It's still one of my favorite albums, but as a writer, I started trying to write my own, I guess, concept album, as it were, not really music, just an overarching theme about insanity and whatnot. I was aping off of what they were doing. And I think I got about one poem in, and I was like, fuck this, I am done. That's hard work.
Yeah, right. It is. Definitely. So for us, it's more like we're making like 10 songs and then, okay, gotta put them together and find something that might include it all, sum it up in some way, but not like a straight line, not like a concept from the start. We would never be able to do that, at least not these days.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean just writing a typical album is pretty difficult, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Tell me some. You mentioned the artwork. Tell me a little bit about the artwork. You've got the pictures of sheep eating from a hay bale that's on fire. That's a pretty striking image.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? That's kind of the same answer that on the previous question, because it was something Tor found on the internet. He just searching all these websites, just looking for cool images, and okay, we found it. This is weird. This is cool. This has some strange vibe to it that we all like. We don't know why, and we have no good explanation for why it should be this artwork, but as often how it works with us.
Oh man, see, that's really funny because you're telling me it was kind of arbitrary, and when I was looking at it, I was kind of assigning, concepts behind it. I'm like, oh, is it sort of supposed to be the idea that, the world's burning down and we're still gorging ourselves and things like that? And I love that you're like, nah, it was just cool.
Yeah. But it also, it fits with the album title as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, they think they're fine. They don't see that the whole thing is on fire, That's so. At least it fits with the album title.
Right. Yeah.
Other than that, it's just cool.
Well, talking about some of the themes on the actual album, some of the lyrics. The last time I talked to you, we mentioned you. I talked to you about "Itching Soul," and you said that was the one that you wrote.
Yeah, I wrote that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the sound, and I like the sort of bleak vibe behind it. And what was the thing that really inspired that song for you?
Pretty much always kind of hard to explain what inspired it. It's a kind of an attempt to describe this longing for something real. I'm maybe inspired by too many hours in front of the computer or something. But it's this longing for reality, this longing for something not just superficial, plastic, photoshopped reality that we often find on social media and so on. And it's also a bit inspired by, sometimes I get tempted to click onto this comment section on different web newspapers and such, and also just by Facebook or whatever, and all that anger, all that hatred, and reading what people actually say to each other on the web, sitting behind their computers, and it's like you can sense the loneliness behind these words, and like the sadness and the anger and the bitterness and all that. And it's kind of what I'm trying to describe in a way as well. It's a weird reality to live in. No one would say that face to face to a person that they actually talked to and tried to, or lived next to, or whatever. It's this weird reality that is on the internet and the comment sections and social media and all that. It's so far away from like the real world. Yeah.
And so much of what you see is very venomous in those comment sections.
Yeah, it's really. You should never go into this comment sections. You always feel like shit afterwards. You just get depressed and think, what is happening to the world? But it's not representative as well. You always have to remember that this is not reality.
Yeah.
This is not how people in general are. They are not so hateful and bitter and venomous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people, they get a strange amount of courage when they can be anonymous behind a computer screen. Sort of the same way that some people get very brave when they have too much to drink. The liquid courage thing. I feel like that's almost one and the same.
Yeah, and it's this distance. You don't relate to these other people participating in that comment section as people. It's like when you drive a car, at least with me, I can get really annoyed driving behind someone who's driving 10 kilometers below the speed limit or whatever, and I it's just a driver. It's just a car. So I think they're really, is such a, what an idiot driving that. But if I knew that it was my grandmother driving that car, I would never think the same things, because I would know that she was anxious. It was really important for her. It meant a lot to her being able to drive a car. So I wouldn't sit in my car thinking to myself that you should never get a driver's license and you should stay back home, if I knew the person that was sitting in that car. And I think it's maybe something about that distance. You don't actually treat people on the internet like human beings the same way like you would do to someone you knew or met face to face.
Yeah, because what you said makes a lot of sense. The idea that when you're on the road, that's not a person, it's a car. And
it is.
It's like you're
stupid.
getting mad at the car.
Yeah, it's really, really stupid.
What's funny is I've really gotten good about, when I was younger, I would yell, when I got annoyed, oh, come on, you prick, blah, 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 that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When you have kids, you realize you have to tone that way down.
Oh, yeah.
But I think they still pick up on it. I think I'll be driving and I'll be like, all right, man,
Yeah.
and they'll start laughing.
And I'm making this annoyed noises, not even words. It's just, and I know, okay, he's really annoyed, even though he doesn't say it.
Yeah, when you start getting the tone and the noise, like you said, the whole yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Man, well, so you were mentioning your grandmother. I'm just curious. Do you have grandparents who are still alive?
No. The last one passed away like 2 years ago or something.
Oh,
it was a grandmother. Yeah,
right.
She was awesome.
How old was she?
No, she was like 85 or something.
Okay, so she had a pretty good run.
Yeah, and she was to me, she's an inspiration because she never stopped challenging herself. When she was like 80, she loved hanging around with younger people. And when she was 80, she could come like, I've learned something new about myself. I want to work on this. I finally found out why I was always angry when you were kids and all, because I was always so tired. And she didn't. I mean, a lot of people seem to stagnate when they hit like 50 or something, and then they're stuck.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's true, but to me it seems like that. Some people, and I really don't want to do that. I don't have many years left. If I should stagnate then. So, and she was like, she got a driver's license when she was 65 or something for the first time.
Wow.
And then she started traveling to Italy, and she'd never been out of Scandinavia before that. So she was a cool old lady.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Did she get into your music, or was it a little too much for her?
No, she was actually, because she had, this is quite weird, but I have an uncle that's 1 year younger than me that she had when she was like 45 or something, and so he's like my friend, my same age, and he was listening to. So it was just the two of them for many years. When he was a teenager, it was just those two, and he was listening to all kinds of crazy music. She actually got used to quite all sorts of things, at least like for women on her age. She got tough.
Yeah. Was she a religious person?
Yeah, she was.
Yeah. Did she have any kind of influence on your belief systems?
I'm not sure if it was like directly, but in some way or another, she definitely had. But because my father, which was her son, he grew up in a Christian home because she became a Christian when she was like 30 or something. So he grew up with that, even though it was all kinds of crazy things going on. So she wasn't allowed to baptize her children until I think my father was 12 or something, before she was allowed, because they were born outside of marriage and all kinds of rules. In a church that is normally they baptize the babies. But still, so my father was a Christian, and both my parents. So that's what I grew up with. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you said she converted when she was 30. What do you know? What the catalyst for that was?
I have to think. It was just some. She had a rough life. She went through a lot at a young age, and I don't know. She just said she started going to this church with this priest that she could actually talk to, and she didn't feel condemned, and she felt welcome, and she kind of learned that what she had done in her life, it didn't change how God viewed her in a way. So she felt loved. Mm-hmm. Even though it was a scandalous situation that she had been in. But she met that in church, actually, that she was not condemned, she was good enough, and there was love for her. I think that meant a great deal to her in her situation. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing how much a gentle approach can really help somebody feel so much more at ease about any kind of situation that they're in, because it's like, man, condemnation is just so it's like being beaten mentally, and so it's it's almost like being a beaten dog in a way that's like you get to a point where you probably don't even feel like attempting to be embraced or loved by somebody else. So that's great she found that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you said she was in something scandalous. Is that something you can elaborate on as to what happened to her?
No, and that was just this affair with this older man who was married, and I know it was a huge family secret. My father didn't know until he was 45 or something that he spent his first year alive at a child care as a home for children.
Oh, yeah, like an orphanage in a way?
Like an orphanage, yeah, like an orphanage. And that, like being at an orphanage the first year of your life in the 50s, that might explain a few things.
I bet. I mean, good night.
So he didn't know until he was like 45.
Man, that must have really blown his mind when he found that out, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. So it was hidden family secrets for so many years.
Well, he's talking about family secrets. Like one of ours that we bumped into several years ago was my grandfather. We are not 100% sure, but when he was kind of he was on his deathbed. He was not all there. And somebody heard him mention something about robbing a bank. And we've all kind of wondered about that since. Like, was he Jesse James or something in a life we didn't know about?
But you never got to know what it was about?
No one knows. That he mentioned it while he was sort of in a delirious state about robbing a bank. And everybody's just like, do you know anything about this? No. No one knows.
That's exciting.
So it's like either he, was just crazy and it was, his head wasn't thinking correctly or he kept a really good secret. And that's pretty exciting to think about.
Yeah, and I mean that generation, it might have happened because they did that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, he grew up in the Dillinger era,
Yeah, they just buried stuff, and if someone was adopted, it was such a shame that they didn't ever get to know who their real parents was, and always kind of things that weren't allowed to talk about, just pretend it never happened. So I mean. Anything in that generation, you never know.
Oh yeah. There's so many of them. I think dealt with it with alcohol and whatnot. I mean, that generation is sort of known for being heavy duty drinkers.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure that was definitely the medicine of choice. If you couldn't talk about this kind of stuff and you knew it was there and it was eating you away, you had to deal with it somehow. I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, let me switch back over to talking about the band for a second.
Yeah.
Before we spill all of our family secrets.
Yeah. Some things might stay in the family. I don't know.
Right. So, you guys, you've been together working as musicians since the 90s.
Yeah.
But I think the last time we spoke, you said you guys got together when you were teenagers?
Yeah. I mean, we got to know each other when I moved to this small village in southern Norway when I was 11. Then I got in the same class as Thor and John. So we got to know each other then. And when we were like 13, 14, we just had to form a band. We just had to grow our hair long, buy some leather jackets, and buy some instruments. That's what happened.
Did you know how to play, or did you just say, we're going to buy instruments and we'll figure it out later?
No, we had no idea. I had a guitar that I got from my father, so I was the first one with a guitar. I knew a tiny bit, but the others never touched guitar or bass or whatever before deciding we got to start a band.
So it sounds like you did it because you knew it was cool.
Yeah, we knew it was cool, and it was when we discovered like metal for real. I mean, we had been listening to some metal, like AC/DC and Metallica and all that earlier on, but we got like really hooked on metal when we discovered thrash metal and harder metal, and so we just had to form a band because it was suddenly such a big deal to us. Yeah.
What was the first real thrash band that you found yourself really getting into and graduating into harder and heavier stuff?
Well, I think it was my older sister that got to borrow these cassette tapes, copied ones, from a friend, and it was a lot of these early 90s, these Christian bands, like Just Rightified and Believer, Tourniquet, and I think that was Sacrament. That was the first bands that we just sat around the cassette player, just with open mouths and, what is this? This is crazy. And what is Christian bands. I mean, this is yeah. At first we were just laughing. I mean, because it just sounded wild in some way. But when we listened to it over and over, and things started to make sense, and we could recognize these riffs and the grooves and all, and then it was done. We were there.
Yeah, it's like there was no turning back.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you got into Christian bands, like Christian metal bands at the beginning, because it was, for me, it was pretty tricky to come across. A lot of the stuff that was carried around here was just, the straight up heavy metal, but I'd have to go to, like these little bookstores, and, I'd have to look through their very, very limited selection of metal, and have to, hey, can you order this for me? And you had to put effort in to get this stuff, and I feel like I appreciated it a lot more back then because of all the effort I had to put into it.
Yeah, it was same for us. I mean, probably even harder because there was no record store where we lived, and we could go to the closest city, and sometimes they could order stuff that we heard of, but other times we had to order it from the US. We had to go to the bank and exchange into dollar bills, put it in an envelope.
Oh man!
It to the US, and just hope that it would come a T-shirt or a cassette or whatever in return. Sometimes it did, and sometimes it didn't.
Oh man!
So it was really cool when the letter arrived, when it actually when we got it.
Wow. Well, I take back my previous rant. Yours was much more difficult in terms of your journey to get metal than mine was. Never mind.
It was a long way. And one of us, like Tor, I think, started to subscribe to the Heaven's Metal magazine.
Yeah.
And so we were reading all this new the reviews, discovering new bands, and then we had to get hold of that and check it out. And yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Oh man, Heaven's Metal. That's a reference I haven't heard in a very long time. That was a niche magazine for sure.
Well, it was really underground.
Oh yeah.
At least where we lived. I mean, in our village, nobody even listened to normal metal, and nobody looked different from anyone else. And so we were like 4 or 5 kids really into American Christian thrash and death metal that no one ever heard about. It was cool.
Yeah, that's like being in your own little club. I bet that was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Now, did it freak your parents out? Because, you guys must have looked like, some sort of satanic cult running around, being the only ones in your village looking like that.
Yeah, I mean, people were shouting to us on the streets and whatever, threatened to beat us up. And, yeah, but our parents. I mean, we didn't drink or do a lot of. We didn't do any drugs, or we were kind of nice guys. We attended school, did our homework. At least some of it, and I know my parents didn't like the motifs on the album covers or T-shirts, and they're sometimes, what is this? What are you wearing? I mean, what's the point? And it helped, of course, that I sometimes just picked up to my parents, you read for yourselves. It's nothing. This is from the Bible or whatever, This is because a lot of those bands had really explicit Christian lyrics. So, I mean, they couldn't really say anything on that. They couldn't. Yeah, they saw that the lyrics were actually about Jesus and God and all that, and so they kind of accepted it.
Yeah, it was just, they were like, well, I can't be too mad at you, or I can't be too condemning of this because of the kind of crazy pictures that are on the covers. Yeah, because those always got to my mom, too. She never liked the artwork on any of the albums I listened to. It was always, what did she say? Oh, yeah, she was always like, well, I hope this isn't messing your head up. That was her big worry.
Yeah, And I mean, the music, it's, of course, they didn't understand it. It was really far from anything they ever heard before. But I mean, up to now, it's been that for a while. I mean, they grew up with rock and roll and all that. And then they knew how their parents were reacting to that. And that Beatles and Stones were totally crazy. For their parents. So I think they probably understood that, okay, this is just something we don't understand, but it doesn't mean it's bad or evil or whatever.
It's just different.
Yeah.
I know that I've been trying to explain to my oldest daughter. She was asking why people thought that, stuff like Elvis Presley, when we hear that come on the radio, like, why were people so angry about this kind of music? And well, it's never been heard before, so this was crazy stuff.
It is really hard to understand for our generation. I mean, for my kids, I think nothing will shock them. And I mean, whatever they come up with, like music-wise, it might be something that I don't like, but it's not going to shock me in any way. Yeah,
I feel the same way. I think I might, at the most, become one of those parents that's just like, all right, I don't get it, but I guess that's just the way it is.
Yeah. I think it sucks, but okay.
Right.
Your choice. I've got some better stuff for you, but but I'm old, I know.
Well, I think that's the responsibility of the older generations to tell the younger generation their stuff sucks. That's a time-honored tradition.
It is. That's how it should be.
Well, let's see. I was I forgot what else I was going to ask you. It was about the album. I wanted to ask you about what made the sound of this album become. It's much. I wouldn't say much different, but it's very distinct in its sound from the previous album, Sin.
Yeah.
What was the? I don't know what was the inspiration behind that. What made you guys want to add these sort of synth sounds, and it feels a little more, for a lack of a better word, accessible than your previous output. Was that something that was on purpose?
Yeah, not that it's... We wanted to do something a bit more straightforward when it comes to like time signatures and all that, and like compose in a way that we haven't done before, and I think that like the sound that the album got, it has a lot to do with Thor, because he's been working a lot on the production and with all his synths and a lot of the vocals and all that. He's been working on the material for a longer time. He's been refining it a lot more this time around than we did last time. So I guess the sound and production has got a lot to... Even though we made kind of more straightforward material in the first place, then he just continued working on the first ideas, and just yeah, it's you can. I think you can hear that it's a lot more effort put into the production and the arranging and all that this time. And I'm really happy about how it turned out. I think he did a great job. So this time around, since Tor has got a lot of credit for it, then it's easier for me to brag about it, you know. Yeah, the album's awesome. Yeah, I'm on it, but I mean, it's not. It's him.
Well, I mean, that's actually kind of nice. I'm sure to have somebody, carry the load that way. It makes it easier on you guys.
Yeah, it does, and I mean, it's been. We recorded the drums like 2 years ago. I recorded the drums 2 years ago. And after that, the rest of the album is recorded at Thor's place. He's got this tiny cabin outside. So he had the opportunity to work on it. I have to drive for a little more than an hour from where I live to get to his place. And if I put my kids to bed and then drive for a bit more than an hour, and then we have to put all the stuff up, and then we maybe work for 2-3 hours, and then I have to go back home, getting up early the next day. So I hadn't had the opportunity to work on it, like he did either. So it's just, it's awesome that he put so much into it.
Yeah.
So that it could turn out like this. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's got a lot of really interesting sounds. For me, I feel like the way that Pollyanna, which is the intro track, is so much different from Every Day is Independence Day. Their sounds, I mean, to me, that almost sums up the album. Is like, this is sort of the spectrum of rock music that you're going to get. And I like that it sounds experimental, comparatively speaking, to your other albums, because I like it when bands try new things, even if it doesn't work out, just because it's never boring. It's always going to be interesting. Yeah,
and we totally agree with you on that. The last thing we want to do is to make something boring or something that sounds like somebody else, and that's kind of always been our goals since we actually learned how to play a little guitar and drums and all that, and making these songs since we didn't manage to play anybody else's songs. And so it was really early. We had this, the artistic vision. At least, okay, we may suck, but if we suck, we want to suck in our own way, not sounding like anyone else sucks. You know. So we've been really bad at this career vision, and when it comes to music industry and all that, we are terrible. but we always that's always been a clear goal to us to make something. It has to be creative. It has to be something new. If not, then why should we be in a band? There are lots of other good bands out there making creative stuff. If we should sound like any one of them, why?
Yeah, it's like you don't want to fall into the unfortunate pattern that band Lamb of God has seemed to have fallen into, which is they're just kind of, in my opinion, I feel like they're just repeating themselves at this point. And I would love to hear them just do something different, because I just haven't listened to the last couple albums because I feel like I already own them in a weird way.
Yeah, and then I don't see the point. I know, career-wise, of course, there's a point. You get to, it's fun. You play huge festivals, probably earn some money from music.
Yeah.
As well, but still, I mean, if play in a cover band, there's a lot of, you can play cover songs.
Yeah, and I mean, that way you've already got the discography set up, and you can just go ahead and play that and make a little cash that way. Sure.
Yeah.
But that just doesn't seem fulfilling.
No, not to me either. Not at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, have you gotten pretty good response to this album?
Yeah, we have lots of press. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Interviews and all that. We got a great promotional company working on the album and working with us now, and like the reviews that are coming in, I hope for a lot of more reviews, but the reviews that are out there already are really great, and that's always nice, because I mean, when you had this record in your head for a couple of years, then okay, I might think it's awesome, but I might be crazy. Mm-hmm. So then it doesn't help if I'm the only person in the world think it's awesome. So I care about reviews and feedback and all that. So that's really nice. Mm-hmm. We've been working a lot on an album, and it's been like 5 years since our last one. Mm-hmm. It's always encouraging. We want to sit down and make another one.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right now, since you can't go on the road, I guess it's entirely possible you could, punch another one out, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is the right time to sit down, write some more songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I heard that's what Ozzy Osbourne's doing, since he wasn't able to tour and he got sick, that he's just like, I'm going to write another album. So like, apparently we'll get another Ozzy album before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, if you got the inspiration, go for it,
Yeah, but it'll be exciting to see how many albums will come out in 2021. It's going to be like double. Everyone's sitting home.
Ton of concept albums.
Yeah. So it's going to be a hard competition to get recognized next year. I
didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right. Everybody's probably doing that right now. It's going to be, that's going to be a good listening year. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Woof. Well, Ole, I appreciate your time, man, and congratulations on the new record, and I hope it does well. I hope to be able to maybe see you guys if you're able to go out on tour sometime. I'd love to be able to check you out. So hopefully this craziness will calm down and we can get back to doing concerts again.
Yeah, we really hope so.
Yeah,
we'd love to go out doing some live shows again. It would be awesome.
Yeah,
it's been really nice talking to you too, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And thanks for giving me your time twice.
If it fails again, we'll get another chat next week.
I know. Heck, we'll be friends by then.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, take care, brother. I appreciate you.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.
So that's going to do it for another episode of the Rock God podcast. Make sure you check out Mantric's new album, False Negative, on their Bandcamp page. And you can also go to all their social media, Facebook at Mantric and Instagram at Mantric1. And I want to again thank Ole and all the guys in Mantric for taking a few minutes to talk to me. Make sure you go to heavy-vinyl.com to check out any new vinyl releases that we might have or past episodes of the Rock God podcast. You can also find us on Facebook, Heavy Vinyl and Cassettes, Instagram, Heavy Vinyl Records, Twitter, @VinylHeavy. Thanks again for listening. Till next time, God bless.